What a tone-setting game. Now, if you want to come out and you want to show the league that you haven't missed a beat, that's the way to do it. To beat Boston, the home team, in a 4-1 dominant win by the Philadelphia Flyers against the Boston Bruins, to be honest with you, I don't think we were all expecting it to be that smooth sailing coming in. I mean, the win over Pittsburgh in the past, the Flyers lose that game in overtime, right? Against the Bruins now, the Flyers come up short, right? Maybe they're the ones who fall behind early. Today we look at a very different team. I think this is a team that is clearly more mature along the process of bringing in the new organization, the new leadership, than a lot of us anticipated. And I think the mark that AV, Terrian, and Yo have put on this team is quite noticeable. 4 months out, they come in, and without missing a beat, they come in with a very similar attitude, a very similar mindset. And while their game hasn't been perfect throughout the first 2 games, it has definitely shown that they're picking up exactly where they left off, where they come in and they put up a better performance than their opposition regardless of how good that team is. Obviously, Pittsburgh is a little bit in flux with a couple early overtime losses, but still a highly talented team, one with a couple championships within the past decade, and a lot of those remnants still being there. And then you look at a team like Boston, who was heavily favored throughout the year over most teams in the National Hockey League, especially at the start of the year. They've just been an excellent team for years and years, and you're starting to see what I've been talking about, what Jamie and I have been talking about really for a while, and you can pretty much listen to all of our writers will say, something very similar, is the depth within this organization is just on another level. There's just something we haven't normally seen. It's something we haven't seen till at least the last time the Flyers went to the finals. I mean, really, you're talking about pre-lockout type of depth at this point, where you could come in and trade for Tony Amani and bring him into your team, and Jamnov, and you just bring in every single good player in the league. There's no cap. You have nothing to worry about, and you can just buy your way to being competitive. Today, you can't really do that, and this is really where Ron Hextall's work has come into play. And obviously, I'm not taking away from Fletcher. He did a fantastic job taking over, but it's really the work that Hextall did prior to that, clearing the cap, bringing in the depth, the youth, looking how well those players are succeeding today. I mean, if you want, go watch my Phil Myers video. I talked about this a few months ago. He is the definition of where the Flyers currently are in the process. You're not supposed to have an extra Phil Myers. He's supposed to be like your future, maybe cornerstone defenseman. You're not supposed to have Sanheim, Myers, and then a bunch of other slew of good young defensemen coming behind them, right? Zamula, York, right? We're not even talking about Provorov, who's the same age, right? We already think of him as being just done and ready to go. And really, the Flyers are on another level. And let's start early on. I mean, Michael Raffl, a goal and assist. Obviously, he's going to be out for a good amount of time, but the depth still shows. And what I want to really take away is, whether it's Frost, Farabee, Bunneman, Lindblom, for any reason, if he can play soon, if it's any of these guys who kind of grab that role moving forward, or any of these switches, I mean, this is the biggest element to winning a championship, is not just playing well as a team, not just having the right pieces, the number one center, the number one defenseman, the number one goaltender, and if you don't, the tools to compensate for that. If you don't have that, you need depth, organizational depth, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. I mean, Michael Raffl's loss back in the day would have been crushing to us. It would have been a huge top 9 miss right in the beginning. A guy who put up 20 goals in the past, right, because we needed him on the top line. Today, he's playing a 4th line role, and while he's did a great job and he had a goal and assist, I mean, it shows his value is still there. You really can see the depth of this organization, because you could theoretically bring on a more talented player. Maybe he's a little younger, but he could end up putting up same type of production, if not better. Maybe he won't play the defensive role, but then you shift that role to somebody else, and there's so much depth within the team. I mean, even all the centers, right? They all play adequate defense now, and if you need Scott Lawton to play center, you can do that as well. There really isn't a shortcoming, and what I want to take away is this team is built for a championship. I can't promise they're going to win a championship. We don't know if they're going to win a championship. They might not even make it out of the first round. I mean, but does anybody actually suspect that? I don't think so. I think what people saw last night against the Bruins, we saw a good Bruins team, maybe without their starting goaltender, but a good Bruins team, a very good team. And while maybe you could even say they're not playing their best hockey, I mean, the Flyers made them look that way. And up until they pulled their goaltender at the end, they had, one shot on net in the third period where they had to battle back. The Flyers are doing what they did prior to the lockout. They are instilling their will on their opposition. That doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it every night. Doesn't mean they're going to be able to do it to every team. But it does mean that they are at that level where they can separate themselves from the pack. They are officially leveled up. This is a video game. You want to see a little thinkable on the screen? Leveled up. And I think it's very interesting in where this team is going to go. There's still going to be changes throughout the future. And I think this team is built for several cup runs, not just this one. So let's not bank everything on 1 year. Otherwise, this isn't a legit contender, quite frankly. I think that's what we're looking at, right? I don't think you're a legit contender unless you can compete every year. Unless every year is on the table, at least for, 3-4 years in advance, you're probably not winning a championship unless you're capable of competing to a high level for multiple years, because that signifies your depth is there, your veterans are there, your organizational team defense and offensive execution are there, your power play and your penalty kill are at least mid-tier in the league, to if not higher. Right now you can see the Flyers are operating well on both ends. And it's showing, it's really showing. I actually had this weird little thought today, is like, could AV and company made Andrew McDonald better? Like, if he played under this coaching staff, under these conditions, would he even have been bought out, or would he just finished out the last year of his contract? People were like, oh, maybe he wasn't that bad. I started thinking about that today, because you watch the way this team plays today. It's not night and day, because I don't want to say that the coaches before were useless or not an NHL caliber, because I think both coaches are younger, at least less experienced for sure, and I think have a way to go until they get to the level of experience that these guys have. And maybe they'll never hit that, but both coaches that took over for the Flyers last year, I think, are smart hockey people, and we see that as Gordon is still coach for the Phantoms, and Hackstall with the job in Toronto, he wouldn't have been hired by accident, right? Like, these are smart hockey minds. But we're watching something else. We're watching a team that's outperforming everybody else, right? Like, the coaching staff is outperforming other coaching staffs. Our defense, our crop of D, is outperforming the other D. All of a sudden, that sweet defense that Nashville had for all these years, and I would argue still has an amazing defense, at least a defensive core, that top four, right? The Flyers all of a sudden are making their way towards that progress, and maybe they don't have the reputation for all of them, but I mean, is anybody trading Provorov for Yossi? I think I don't know any defenseman in the league I would trade Provorov for, to be honest with you. There's a handful of them, and even that is not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm all for it. You're going to have people fighting it. You're not going to have a jump into it, and I'm sure people nitpick that, but this team is in a special place right now, and hopefully this isn't going to be our only cup run. We have many, many more to come, but I think this win against Boston, the goals by Raffl, by Nate Thompson, which again always seems to happen, and that's why you get guys like Nate Thompson, who, in my opinion, had a great game against Boston. Physical, defensively sound, great on the PK. Phil Myers, who offensively played really well in that game. Defensively, I thought he played good. I think he can play even better, even more physical. I think he has another level above him that he's going to hit this playoffs. And I think Scott Laughton is just flourishing as a player, and giving him an opportunity to play with Hayes and Konechny obviously is a game changer for somebody like him, because he is a first-round pick guy, talented enough to play with everybody, kind of like Michael Raffl. Only he's got another gear. Let's let him shine, and we're watching it. And this is stuff you see when teams win championships. So if you guys remember, Chicago Blackhawks were blown up after they won. I mean, people stole pieces from LA, from Detroit, from Pittsburgh, right? Like, after these teams win championships, like, teams around the league are trying to have their pickings. I mean, even after the Flyers lost in the championship, right? Billy Leno got a monster contract, which he probably shouldn't have gotten. But again, this is what really good teams look like. They make every player on the team look better. They come in, they're aggressive, they're hungry, they're confident. They cannot even play they're maybe not even playing their best hockey, but they still find a way to win or bring it all together. Or their goalie, and I'm going to end it on this, Carter Hart. I don't even consider these games real playoffs yet, to be honest with you. I know a lot of people are calling it postseason. I mean, I honestly think they should have just counted it as regular season games, because that's really what they are. But I understand why they didn't, right? The nuances and statistics and all that. But it's really just an intense end of the season sprint here. But Carter Hart, I mean, I don't want to say he stole the show, but if he can do that 9 out of 10 games, I mean, you're watching a top 5 goaltender in the league. I mean, you saw the frustration on Boston's face, and he didn't even break a sweat. I mean, I know they got outplayed too. They came on really strong at the end of that game. Carter Hart did not break a sweat. So something to keep in mind. I do imagine that Elliott will get a game here, and he deserves it, and he's also a good goaltender, so we shouldn't freak out. But what a hell of a way to come in. And this team definitely looks like they're brewing for a championship.